Hi everyone, my name is Haley Gant and welcome to the very first episode of Quest Talks here on Propelio TV. We are super excited for today's episode. Today we have myself and Nate Hare. He's our Executive Vice President at Quest IRA, and we're going to be talking about all things Basics 101 that you need to know about self-directed IRAs and how they can improve your investments. So stay tuned, we've got a great episode for you. Really excited to be here. We'll be right back. All right, everyone, we are back. So we are really excited to be here with Propelio. Today we have myself, Haley Gant, and I'm an IRA Specialist at Quest IRA. And we have Nate Hare, he's our Executive Vice President. We've got a really great show for you guys coming up. We're going to be talking about all things 101, self-directed IRAs. What are they, how can you use them, and how they can benefit both yourself, the other investors that you work with, and the people that are around you. So to get started, Nate, tell us about yourself and kind of what your role is at Quest IRA.
Sure. My name is Nate Hare. I'm the Executive Vice President of Quest IRA. We're a self-directed IRA company, but before I even became familiar with self-directed IRAs, I was a real estate investor. I worked in all different types of real estate related fields, mostly lending. Worked for a lot of large banks as a lender. So I became fascinated with this topic of self-directed IRAs because I had never heard about the ability to take retirement accounts to invest in real estate and have all of your profits completely tax-free. When I first heard it, I thought it was illegal. So I've become a fanatic about it, and I've had the luxury of learning from our president and our CEO, who are probably the foremost authority figures across the country when it comes to self-directed IRAs. And here we are on Propelio, talking to the world about how you take retirement accounts and invest into real estate and have completely tax-free profits for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so it's really cool what we do. Quest IRA has been around since 2004. We have about 17,000 clients nationwide. And about how many assets do we hold at Quest? What the value of that? It kind of changes every day.
It does. It changes every day. It changes on the upswing, which is good. We're always constantly growing. Just to give people a little bit of background about Quest, we're an IRA administrator by definition. We administrate IRAs just like Fidelity or Charles Schwab or Wells Fargo advisors. The only difference is we hold tangible or private assets in our retirement accounts or our clients' retirement accounts versus the publicly traded things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and CDs. And we could define what a self-directed IRA is as we talk, but we're a small fish. When you look at the total assets in retirement accounts across the country, it's about $29 trillion. Quest holds about $2 billion of that, which is very small, but the self-directed IRA industry as a whole is small, but it's continuously growing. So, and we've doubled in size just in the last few years. So right now, Quest IRA administrates and manages $2 billion worth of assets under management in retirement accounts, and all of those assets are everything from fee simple real estate, land, commercial property, a lot of promissory notes secured by real estate, investments into private companies. All sorts of different types of assets are held in our clients' accounts at Quest.
Yeah, and we get this question a lot. You know, we allow people to hold different types of assets. We don't hold stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs. We're not financial advisors. Our clients use their IRAs to hold private assets instead of those publicly traded assets. So we get this question a lot. They're like, well, what's the difference between the IRA that I currently have and a self-directed IRA? You know, what's really the distinguishing factor there? That's probably one of the most common questions that we get.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, we get people thinking a self-directed IRA is some special type of IRA that fits different sets of rules. When truth be told, IRAs are the same no matter where you go. So if you have an IRA at Fidelity or Charles Schwab, that IRA by definition is the same IRA you would have at Quest. They all both follow the same sets of rules. The only thing that's different about a Fidelity and a Quest is Fidelity sells investments. Doesn't make them bad guys. They're licensed securities brokers, and they're in the business of selling investments, and that's how they make their money. So what they make money on is selling stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, and that's how they get commissions. Well, Quest, we don't sell investments. Okay? So in our account agreement with our clients, we say you can hold anything that the IRS allows, but you pick the investment. So that's where the self-directed term comes from. It's just a marketing term, really. It's not a type of IRA at all. It's just the indicator that say, if you have an IRA with Quest, we're not going to sell you anything. We're not going to tell you what you should invest in. You tell us what you want to invest in, and we'll hold it for you in your retirement account. And there's very little limitations that the IRS gives us when it comes to our investment options. It's really only two things. The IRS says you're not allowed to hold life insurance contracts in your IRA and collectibles in your IRA. Anything else is fair game when it comes to an asset held in your retirement account. So as a general rule of thumb, if you can hold title to something, that title can be owned in the name of your IRA, and there's special tax benefits that IRAs get that we don't get as individuals. So maybe tell them a little bit about that, because you've been around this stuff even before. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, this is where self-directed IRAs become so powerful. You know, Haley's dad is one of the biggest real estate investors in Houston. Okay, buys a lot of real estate, flips all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, loans a lot of money.
Yeah, and he's actually one of Quest's longest clients. I think his account number has 3 digits, most likely. So he's been with Quest for a long period of time. But her father, applies his knowledge as a real estate investor to his retirement accounts, and he does the same types of investments in his retirement accounts as he does outside of his retirement accounts. And Haley's been lucky enough to partner her own IRAs in those types of investments. So tell them the benefit of that, and tell them a little bit of background about yourself.
I have, yeah. So to kind of start out with a little bit of background, I grew up in the real estate industry. My parents are real estate investors. When I was in kindergarten, they quit their corporate jobs, went to Vegas over the weekend, and on Monday, started investing into real estate. That was almost
They made sure to go to Vegas first.
Yeah, they made sure to go to Vegas first, just in case, And I guess Vegas didn't go too bad that weekend because they were able to start their business after that.
Yeah.
But so I was in kindergarten, and I'm an only child, so I had no choice but to grow up surrounded by the industry, surrounded by everything. I remember riding around with my parents when I was younger, looking at houses, looking at properties, meeting with contractors and things like that. And I actually remember in 2005, my dad was featured in a magazine article in Kiplinger magazine. I had no idea until I was older, but this magazine article was actually about how he rolled over his IRA to Entrust in 2004, which Quest IRA started as an Entrust franchise. Rolled over his 401k from his previous employer and bought a rental property for like $100,000. And in the time frame of 2004 until now, how large they've been able to grow their IRAs by investing into these non-traditional assets, choosing their own investments, being able to have that control over, I'm going to buy this property in my IRA, I'm going to loan this person money at this percent and make a larger return. It's amazing how much you can grow a retirement account. Like this, what we do at Quest is the real deal. My dad says it all the time, and it's really cool to kind of see everything my whole life. And then with the past 2 years working at Quest, I've kind of seen the tax-free side of it, the self-directed IRAs, and it's really kind of helped seal everything together. And it's been kind of really cool to learn about it and then help other local investors all over the country learn about this as well.
So let's talk about that for a second. Let's just talk about the benefits of having a, quote, self-directed IRA, because I think that's important for anybody out there, whether you're a real estate investor or not. I think it's important to understand how the self-directed IRA works, because there's a lot of benefits to having a self-directed IRA, or at least understanding, how they are and how they work. So some of the benefits with a self-directed IRA, first, the main benefit is that if you're going to invest for your retirement, invest in what you know best. That is the best way to make above average returns without stubbing your toe too many times, is not invest in the things that other people tell you to invest in, but invest in the things that you're knowledgeable about. And I think most of us don't get that education. They don't teach it to us in schools. I went through college, MBA programs. Never once did I have a class on financial responsibility, credit, taxes, all the stuff that you have to learn
self-directed IRA even.
You learn it through hard knocks. But I think for a lot of us out there, we are taught by either our parents or grandparents or just culture in general, is that in order to save for retirement, how you do it is you work for a company, corporate company, you have a 401k, you put 10% of your earnings in that 401k, let someone else invest it for you, and then voila, once you're ready to retire, you'll wind up like that couple driving the sailboat on the commercial with the white sandy beaches behind you, and that's how you retire. Truth be told is that's not how you retire, because if you look at the numbers alone, the average American family retires with $65,000 in their retirement account. Trying to do it that way, trying to fund their 401ks with just their earnings and try to work harder, work more hours, work more overtime to shovel more money in a 401k, which may or may not go up, and you're probably getting feed to death at the same time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you ask anybody that's got those 401ks or mutual funds or things like that to describe how the investment works, 99% of us can't describe how the investment works, and that's a scary thing, right?
Yeah.
Ask somebody to name you the companies that they hold in their mutual funds, see how many people can do it. And even if you run into that smart guy or gal that can name the companies in that mutual fund, can they tell you what each company does, or whether they engage in animal experimentation, or who the CEO is, or what their corporate plan is? The truth is, we don't.
Yeah.
Most Americans invest in things that they're not knowledgeable about. Now, take your father, for example. He is a phenomenal real estate investor, and so are a lot of other people out there. Phenomenal real estate investors. You know, we're in Texas, so we have a lot of clients that are familiar with oil and gas investments. You know, there's other clients that we have that are familiar with medical device equipment and things like that. So the benefit to a self-directed IRA is it allows you to invest in what you know best. You don't have to invest in stocks if you don't want to. You can invest in IRA into real estate. You just have to find a company like Quest that will allow you to do that without selling you the investment. So the main thing with a self-directed IRA is you get to pick the investments and you get to invest in what you know best. The other thing that it's a benefit is that it's just the tax savings. I mean, an IRA gives you tax savings that you don't get as an individual, and that's really how you save for retirement is too. If you're going to invest in a tax-free manner, don't invest in a taxable manner, because any money you invest is taxable. So it's important to understand how the IRAs can be leveraged to give yourself tax shelter away from Uncle Sam, because that's really you don't want to spin your wheels as an investor trying to pay too much in taxes every year and try to invest with your own money. Learn how to put some investments into an IRA, self-directed into things you're knowledgeable about, and you'll find that you'll get to retirement much, much faster than doing it the old-fashioned way, I'd say.
Yeah, and those are all really, really good points. And another thing too, kind of touching on that, is you may not understand where your money is invested in, nor do you have any control over what happens with that investment tomorrow. With the stock market, no matter how knowledgeable you are, that is not your property, your company, or your promissory note that you've loaned someone the money to. If something on Wall Street happens to that company tomorrow, you know, you have a piece of paper. At least with real estate, yes, you do have to do your own due diligence, but you have the power to choose what your money is invested in. And it looks like we did have a question online from Jamal. Hey, Jamal, thanks for watching today. If I have an IRA and I put it in a self-directed IRA, can I use 100% of those funds for real estate?
100%. Yes.
Yes.
So you can use, and there's a lot of different creative ways you can use your existing retirement accounts to invest in real estate. So we'll talk a little bit about the process since he asked that great question. So typically how the process works is if you have an IRA somewhere else and you want to have it ultimately own real estate, you first would just open an IRA at Quest. You can have as many IRAs as you want. There's no limit on how many IRAs you have at different places. And truthfully, I always urge people to have multiple IRAs at different places, because you may not want all of your money with Quest. You may want an IRA still with Fidelity to hold those assets. I'm not saying stocks and bonds and mutual funds are bad investments, but I think that if you want to build yourself a good portfolio, you want to diversify. And diversification is a great thing that the self-directed IRAs allow you to have, because you can diversify into tangible assets like real estate. Real estate is a great tangible asset to hold in your overall portfolio, whether you're a real estate investor or not. So in order to start that process, you just open an IRA at Quest. Typically, you'd fill out a transfer form that we would send to your existing custodian. So say it's Fidelity, you fill out a transfer form, we fax them the transfer form, they wire the funds over to Quest. And now what you would do is you want to identify the property that you want owned in your retirement account. And it's very important to understand this part. We're not handing you the money to go buy the real estate, because that would be a distribution. Okay? What needs to happen is we need to act as the signer, okay, of that investment, because we are the custodian of that investment. Just like Fidelity signs your stock certificates when you buy them, we sign all the other documents that come with real estate, which is your purchase contracts, you know, deeds, all that stuff is signed by Quest. However, you're just doing the same legwork to identify the property. The only difference is when you draw up the contract to purchase it, it's in the name of your IRA. Okay? Your IRA has a special vesting. You put your IRA as the purchaser, we sign the contract, and the money goes straight from your IRA at Quest to the title company or seller or attorney's office or whatever. So all we really do in that case is we exchange an asset of cash for an asset of real estate. Okay? It never touches your hand, it just goes straight out from us. And then when you sell that property, that asset would go back from an asset of real estate to an asset of cash. And then you can just, rinse and repeat. There are other creative ways too. You don't have to use 100% of your IRA if you don't want to. There's a lot of different ways you can partner different buckets of money together. This is one thing that we talk about in our classes, is partnering different types of IRAs together. You may have an IRA, but your spouse might have an IRA as well. We also have other accounts, and maybe I'll let Haley talk about the other accounts in a sec, but we have other accounts that can be self-directed too, which would be like a health savings account, an education savings account, and all these tax advantage accounts have different tax benefits to them. So the real power in self-direction is not the ability to just self-direct your own account, but self-direct your account, maybe your spouse's accounts, your kids' education accounts, your health savings account. And when you get all those invested into, say, that same piece of real estate, well, now you got profit coming back pro rata to several different types of tax advantage accounts that have several different types of purposes. So maybe you could tell them about the 7 accounts that we have that can be used.
Yes, definitely. And I will get to that in a second. Ryan, if you can give me that question again. If you guys have questions, we would love to hear them. Comment below. We'll address them in the show. If we don't get to them in the show, I'm very active on Facebook. Nate is very active on Facebook. We'll be in the feed after. You can't miss us. So comment below if you have questions. We definitely will try our best to get to as many as we can. Before we get to the types of accounts, Tim wants to know, he wants to tap into this $29 trillion in retirement accounts. How can Tim tap into this?
So that's a good question, Tim. You're already thinking ahead of what something we always cap off our conversations with, is that if you're a real estate investor, one thing that's often missed is the ability to raise private capital for yourself through other people's retirement accounts. Now, when we teach at Quest, we always talk about IRAs, especially when we're talking to a real estate investor or some sort of investment savvy individual who may be looking to raise private money, but they're also looking to give themselves some tax advantage on their own accounts. And you could think of IRAs in 2 senses. One is your own IRAs to give yourself a better ability to save for retirement. But unfortunately, your IRAs can't provide you a benefit today in most cases, right? You can't take your IRA and invest into your own investments, because that would be self-dealing. You can't self-deal with your own IRA. You're the fiduciary of the IRA. That would be a conflict of interest. So your IRAs are for the future, right? Putting investments in there to grow tax-free for your future. But how do you make money today using self-directed IRAs? One of the greatest opportunities out there is to raise money from other people's IRAs. Now, it is a different type of business. It takes a lot of networking. You gotta go out there and basically find people that have retirement accounts, because there's no list that you just go find online and say, oh, these are all the people that have retirement accounts that would love to give you money. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. But I will tell you this, just a little insider information. Today at Quest, we have approximately sitting in cash right now, $300 million, okay? Now remember, we're a self-directed IRA company. We don't invest that money for our clients. Our clients have to find their own investments. And at Quest, 40% of our clients are lenders. They don't actually have the time to go find property themselves, but what they have found is they've found it advantageous to them to just own promissory notes secured by real estate. That's actually what I do because of my busy schedule. I like to keep my retirement growing by just owning notes secured by real estate, just like a bank would do. So going to your question, how do you tap into the $29 trillion out there? I would say start going out to your local RIAs, start coming to Quest events. If you're in our area, we do events literally every week. And our events are a great platform for you to come and network with other Quest clients, because me and Haley can't put you one-on-one with people that have money. But guess what? The people that have money sitting there at Quest are also the ones coming to our events because they're looking for opportunities. So if you have good investments, there's money out there for you, but you just got to do a little bit of networking. And I would say also you want to understand how the self-directed IRA works so you can have that conversation with the person. And shameless plug here, it always helps to have a self-directed IRA before you start asking other people to open self-directed IRAs to give you their money. So I always say, have a self-directed IRA, maybe do an investment or two, and you'll be able to go out there and talk to other people about possibly using their money as a funding source through their own self-directed IRA.
Yeah, and that's a huge point that I always touch on as well. Is, you know, at Quest, yes, we have a lot of clients. We have $300 million sitting in our clients' accounts, but self-directed IRAs are only 3 to 4% of all of the retirement accounts out there. And out of that 4% of self-directed IRAs, Quest is only a part of it. if you think bigger than just our clients that are at Quest that you may run into at a class, may run into at the Propelio event, another shameless plug, you know, go out there. I always recommend call someone at Quest, talk to an IRA specialist. If you're interested in learning about how you can use other people's IRAs as private funding sources for your deals, you need to have the knowledge and credibility to be able to have that conversation with someone to say, hey, you know, do you have a retirement account? Are you happy with the returns that you're making? You know, if not, have you ever considered being a private lender? You can loan that money to me or a real estate investor, secure that loan and make anywhere from, you know, 6 to 14%, just kind of like throwing some numbers out there. But, you know, if I go out and I'm trying to find funding and I talk to someone, I'm like, hey, do you have money? Do you want to loan me that money out of your IRA? They're probably going to look at you like you're crazy because nobody knows what a self-directed IRA is. The conversations and education that we do at Quest is not a conversation that a lot of people are having, even though they should, because it allows you to earn that much more in your retirement account. But, you know, if you're looking for private investors, be able to have the initial conversation. You don't have to give the full spiel of, you know, open up the account, transfer, you know, all that. We can do that for you. We're neutral. We do the education part of it. But, you know, have a good connection at Quest and have at least a little bit of the base knowledge where whoever you're talking to understands that you do have a bit of credibility there. And by being able to introduce that conversation, then having us that you can call, it's going to open up the doors to unlimited sources of private funding. It's really, really crazy.
Well, and here's the thing too, is because if you're a real estate investor, it's good to know where all the money's at. Okay, obviously you can go to a bank and get financing, but what's a bank going to want from you? They're going to want your tax returns, you will see your pay stubs, W-2s. They're going to want your residency, 10 years, no gaps, right? Loan application, blood sample, all that stuff. And if you're buying investment property, they're not going to give you 100% financing. They might give you 70%. And they're going to limit you on how many loans you get. So if you're just using conventional financing, you're going to be limited on how much real estate or how much investments you can buy. Now, what's the other alternative? You can go hard money. Hard money works sometimes. Now, hard money is not cheap, though. Okay, it's going to be expensive, but you're also going to be a little bit limited there too. So both of those ends of the spectrum are limited. Right there in the middle is private money. Okay, private money, I would say there's very little limitations to that because I don't think anybody I know has $29 trillion of real estate they're ready to buy. Okay, but there's $29 trillion sitting in retirement accounts. Now, it takes a little bit of effort to get out there and network with people, but I will give you this. I'll give you a true story. We have a client in Houston. Okay, he bought 62 properties personally, his own investment, not his IRA stuff, just his personal investments. He bought 62 properties in 2016. He used $0 of his own money. He used all IRA financing because he's been doing this for, say, 7, 8 years now. So he's got IRA lenders just waiting to give him money on his next deal because he's been paying them 8, 10% for years. They love investing with him because he gives them better returns than they get in other investments. So if you have good investments, you can not only provide yourself a life-changing event by using other people's IRAs as your funding source, but you also provide life-changing events to those people. Because think about what people invest in these days. You hear these wealth advisors say, oh, well, if you have a big bucket of money and you're past retirement age, we better be safe and secure with your money. So you better, we're going to invest in a CD. We're going to put your money in a CD, right?
What do you like to call it?
Certificates of depression.
Yeah.
Okay? Certificates of depression, you get that whopping 1% return, right? And you get fees taken out of that, so it's not really a true 1%. But think about that investment for a second. 1% return, and a lot of them are 5 years, several years you got to stay in these things. 1% return, it doesn't even keep up with inflation. So that means you get broke safely. That's all that means. So if you can find people that have those depressive investments, and you're an investor that can take their money and put it into secure real estate, right? Through a promissory note, deed of trust, their money's secured by something tangible. It's not like you're just taking their money and you have to pay them back. You have to pay them back, yes, but they're secured by the property if you're doing it right. But if you give them 6%, 7%, 8% return, you're making life-changing events to them too. You are enabling people to retire earlier by giving them above average returns that they're not getting currently. And this is exactly what that client did, and that's why he's got so many people wanting to lend him money because he's got good deals and he pays them. So so the finance, the money's out there, and you don't need good credit, and you don't need income to tap into it because most people aren't running. I'm not running credit checks on my borrowers. I'm doing some due diligence on them, and the property, but I'm not doing it like bank financing where I'm, putting the magnifying glass on them in that sense. So yes, if you can understand self-directed IRAs, there's, I would say, a limited amount of money out there for you, especially if you have good investments.
Yeah. So kind of getting back to a few questions that we had, Tim had another question. Can you bonus yourself from the self-directed IRA? The short answer to that is no. So basically, whenever you hold investments in your IRA is the entity that owns that investment. Any expenses to do with that investment have to be paid from the IRA. Super simple. You just upload an invoice online. We send the payment out in 24 to 48 hours. And then when those profits come back in, they all go directly back to the IRA. The money cannot directly pass through your hands. And if you're like a real estate agent and you've bought and sold a property with your IRA, the rules always go back to you cannot receive any sort of direct or indirect benefit personally from an investment that you have done with your IRA. So any sort of real estate commissions, bonus, you cannot receive any of that. It's strictly for the benefit of the IRA, getting that special tax benefit, and you get your benefit later in retirement when you can take that money out after you're 59 and a half and no longer have a 10% penalty at that time.
And that's the key point. Remember how your IRA is set up. IRAs are a great tool that the government has given us to help us save for retirement by investing either in a tax-deferred manner or a tax-free manner. We get our benefit from our IRA from distributions. Okay, that's the only way you benefit from your IRA's investment is when you take distributions to yourself, preferably after 59 and a half for most people, so you don't get hit with the 10% penalty. But there's other IRAs that you don't get penalized for, and we'll get to that in a second. But your benefit always has to come from distribution. It can't come from anything else. So for example, you can't use your IRA, buy a rental property, and then you pocket all the rents. That's not how it works. All the income must go to the IRA. All the benefit goes to the IRA based on the investment. Your benefit comes from when you want to take distributions.
Yes. Awesome. So I want to give a few shout outs. Shout out to Cashflow Chris from AZ Flip Guys in Phoenix. Nate and I actually just flew back from Phoenix last night.
Phoenix? Yeah, we just were there.
Yeah. We've been there twice now in the past 2 months, so maybe we'll have to plan our next trip out there.
Yeah, that's why we're both coughing up lungs. We're going from all these different climates back to back.
Yeah, it was actually raining while we were in Phoenix, so it was, but I love Phoenix. It's a fun place. Thanks for watching, Chris. And also, Elizabeth down in Houston, thanks for watching. I always see your comments, so nice to see you, I guess, through the Facebook Live. And then someone had a question for Ryan Harper. I don't know, or was this your question, Ryan? Yeah, so Ryan wants to know, why is there such a disconnect of knowledge about self-directed IRAs?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is.
So I would probably say that the disconnect with the knowledge is that, well, the industry as a whole is set up to where the big guys, they've got all the money, right? Quest IRA is not going to go out there and be able to outmarket the Fidelities and Charles Schwabs of the world. They're just too big, right? That's just the way it is. But I would probably say, Ryan, and I'm a firm believer that they don't teach enough of this stuff early in life. I think that there needs to be more classes, even all the way through high school, about just financial responsibility, taxes, credit, how to be a good saver, how IRAs work. I remember, going through college, I had one class that just mentioned IRAs, and I had no idea. I mean, it was just like kind of touched on. But outside of that, if you want to really learn about how to save for retirement, you either have to have a really good wealth advisor. Wealth advisors are probably not, most of them are not going to tell you about self-directed IRAs because they don't get paid on those. Good wealth advisors, though, will tell you the real deal and say, we want some of your assets in these publicly traded assets, but we want some assets that are tangible that you can rely on, which one of those great assets is real estate. So I would say the average person is just not subjected to that information, in their normal everyday life. It's the people that go out and seek it, the people that are go out and search out, what are my investment options? Can I invest in real estate? And somehow they start to find their way to companies like Quest, and then they come to an event, and then they figure out, oh, there are a small amount of people that do this. I'm not the only person thinking this. I think only about 5% of Americans really truly understand and use a self-directed IRA. But again, it's not knowledge that's just out there for the masses. We don't have commercials. You really just got to go seek it out. And most of the people that are administrating IRAs right now don't have a vested interest to suggest self-directed IRAs to you. So you just got to understand that most people's money is with those big guys, and they're never going to suggest to you that you can buy real estate in an IRA. Sometimes they even tell you you can't, which is true in a sense. You can't do it with them. So a lot of people just think, well, okay, so my only options are stocks, bonds, mutual funds, because that's all I'm ever shown.
Yeah, and I think too, that's also why at Quest, we put such a big emphasis on the education that we do. Coming out here today, our weekly classes, monthly mixers, our big expo that we do every year, amongst probably 500 or 600 other events that we do throughout the year. There's not a lot of people talking about this or having this conversation, and it's a conversation that needs to be had. So we love doing this type of education at Quest. Everyone, definitely keep the questions coming. We will get to as many as we can. If not, we'll be commenting after. So comment all the questions you can think of. Keep them coming. We will be right back after this short break. All right, guys, we are back. So getting right back to the questions that we have, we've got a lot coming in. So Matt Smith wants to know, how and where would you approach someone to use money? I'll answer this one. So come to events, come to the Quest classes, our monthly mixers, come to the Propelio event, and kind of know the intro of the conversation that you need to have if you're looking for someone with money. Know the questions to ask, know the things to say to make yourself look credible, know what you're looking for. If you have certain deals, certain properties that you're looking for lending on. Now, keep in mind at Quest, we do not give tax, legal, or investment advice. We give education. We're here kind of talking casually today, but we are never here to advise you or give you any sort of advice as to how to go out and find these deals. So always keep that in mind. But you know, just call someone at Quest. We'll kind of talk you through it. You know, we do a class specifically over private money lending that covers the borrower and the lender side of that transaction. That's a really great one to watch. We have it online on our Facebook page, just Quest IRA Inc. on Facebook. But give us a call. We'll kind of walk you through if you're looking for funding. We'll walk you through or funding for your deals. We'll walk you through the process of, you know, so you set up the account at Quest. You fill out the promissory note, the direction of investment, which is our internal Quest form for that transaction. So that way, when you are going out and you're looking for people to potentially loan you money out of their IRAs, you have a good enough idea of the process that you sound credible whenever you introduce that conversation to them.
Well, I think you hit it on the head, is that our most popular class at Quest is our private money lending class. So we teach, and again, not telling people how to structure deals, but it's more about, if you're going to use your IRA like a bank and want to be a private lender with your retirement account, what are the things that you should consider before you do that? But then we also touch on the other side, is if you're a borrower, what are the things you should consider before you start borrowing people's retirement money, because it's a relationship business. I will say, going to that class will kind of help you understand maybe how to have the conversation, but it's going to be awkward. If you haven't had the conversation and you haven't used a self-directed IRA on your own, it will be awkward the first time you try to talk about it. And it's always the first potential lender that's the hardest one to get, because you've never done it before. But once you've got one person that has agreed to lend you money, secured by real estate or secured by something else, and you pay them back with their principal and their interest, now you've got a lender for life. And then that's where the snowball effect can take place, because if you're doing the things that a lot of good investors are doing, which are, you know, taking their lenders' interest in at all costs, even if it means they lose money. You want happy lenders. The more people you make happy as a lender, the more people they will refer to you. And then you get this snowball effect. And just like I mentioned, the client that we have in Houston, today he actually has an interesting problem, because he's been doing this for a long time. He's been paying people. You know, those people tell their brothers, their aunts, their spouses. He's got people coming now to him, just walking up to him with money. He doesn't have to go look for it. And now he's got more money than he can find deals for. That's a good problem to have. But it's the first person that's always the hardest one to find. And it just takes a little bit of education so that you can have the conversation, and you want to make it smooth and painless on your potential lender. So the better you understand it, the better you'll be able to talk fluently to your potential lenders. And again, a suggestion that I would probably make just on a personal level is maybe do a loan first. Set up an account yourself. Do a loan with another investor that you might trust. go through the process. Once you've gone through it from A to Z, then you'll be able to just walk up to anybody and go, oh, here's how it works. I've got these deals. If you want to use your IRA to own a promissory note and I can give you above average return on these investments, here's exactly how it works because I've already done it. Okay, and you can walk them through the steps. If you haven't done it, then yeah, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, you know, if you've never baked a pie, how are you going to teach someone to bake a pie, you know?
Yeah, right? Burn it in the oven.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to kind of build on that as well, you know, as a real estate investor who's borrowing money, especially when you're borrowing money from someone's retirement account, you do have some sort of responsibility to that lender. You know, if you're borrowing someone's retirement and they are maybe really close to retirement age, it's your first deal, you've never done a deal before, and you're borrowing $100,000 from their IRA, you may kind of want to think about the way you're doing that investment. You know, you're dealing with people's retirement. You always want to protect your borrower. You want to make sure that the proper things are in place, like the deed of trust, where if you don't pay, they can foreclose and take that property as collateral. But also, you know, if you've never done a deal before and you're looking for private lenders, make sure that your numbers are right. You know, do the due diligence on the deal because you are still dealing with other people's retirement. You know, they don't want to loan you money to lose their retirement accounts. It unfortunately does happen sometimes, which is why due diligence is just so important. We really can't stress that enough.
And the truth of it is that lenders are typically not lending to the property. The lenders are lending to you. So you're the one selling them on your track record, your ability to perform, because ultimately at the end of the day, if the investment goes bad, they're looking at you, they're not looking at the investment. So you have, I would say, a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that you take their considerations in at all costs and make sure you don't, mismanage their money. They're looking at you as a potential, I would say, advisor in that sense. So our private lending class teaches that. It teaches you the things you want to consider before you start borrowing people's money. And there's a lot of goods and bads. So I would say, because it's private money, everything's a negotiation. So that's a good thing, I would say, for most potential borrowers, is you can give people options. You know, you can say, and find what that potential lender wants, because not everybody's not going to want the same thing, right? If you find somebody that's got a retirement account and they might be a potential lender to you, and they're a little bit younger in age, I would say that person might be a little bit more risk adverse, or want to maybe do something creative. So they may even want a piece of equity on the deal. So if you're talking to someone who's younger, you may structure it in a deal where you don't give them a lot of interest, but you might give them a piece of the deal. They might like that as a risk factor. That might make them more money. But if you talk to somebody who's past retirement age, they're not looking for home runs. Okay? They're looking for their safety, security. So that's a different conversation you're going to have with somebody at that age versus somebody that's younger. You just need to identify that everybody is at different stages of life, and if you're going to borrow their money, you need to figure out what their risk tolerance is and what they need. And other things is, when you are dealing with somebody who's a little bit older in life, remember, you are the fiduciary of that money now if you're borrowing the money. And if you meet, a lady who's past retirement age and she's got $100,000 in her retirement account, and you need $100,000 for your fix and flip, you may want to think twice about borrowing every penny of that person's retirement account, because you might want to think twice. If that person's in their mid-70s or something like that, what are the chances that that person might get sick or ill and need some of that money back in the middle of your flip? Okay?
Yeah.
It might not be advantageous that you take every penny from them, knowing that there's a greater chance they might need it at any time soon. So again, those are just things that you want to consider, and I think that if you take your considerations and you make sure that you're doing right by your lenders, you will have more people that would want to lend to you.
Yes. Awesome. So again, just guys, remember, at Quest, we do not give tax, legal, or investment advice, but we do a lot of education. Propelio is also, they are not financial advisors, but they also do a lot of free education. These TV shows, The Academy, which we're also a part of, we're super excited to be a part of it.
Did they see the monkey? Show them the monkey.
The monkey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Get that monkey back there.
Get a nice little zoom in on the monkey. Yeah, so go watch the private lending class if you want to know more about that. We host it live in our classrooms almost every month, and it's on our Facebook page as well. Chris wants to know, can I partner my IRA on a deal with me? How about if there are many members in an LLC and I'm a small percentage of ownership? Whew, I know what we're about to talk about now is disqualified people and some of the restrictions, because those are very important to be aware of as well. First of all, thanks for watching, Chris. Happy to have you here today. But so when you're using your IRA, there are some restrictions. You get this awesome tax benefit for holding investments inside of your IRA, but unfortunately, there are some restrictions. Nate, do you want to touch on those? Or?
Sure. So here's the basic breakdown of restrictions when it comes to your IRA's investments. So first, there's investment restrictions, which the list is really short. I kind of mentioned at the beginning. You're not allowed to hold life insurance contracts. You're not allowed to hold collectibles. The other restrictions are the ones that become very, very important, especially in the self-directed world. Now, these are IRA rules at Fidelity too. It's just they don't ever have to talk about it because you're only buying and selling things from Wall Street. Well, when you start self-directing your IRA, you're buying and selling things from people. It's private. So the biggest thing that you want to understand is that there are people restrictions to your IRA. Now, the people restrictions are the people that cannot directly do investments or do transactions with the IRA where they self-deal. Okay? These people would be called the disqualified people, and it's important to understand who is disqualified to your IRA. Now, if I'm talking about my IRA, the people that are disqualified to my IRA would be me, the IRA owner, my spouse, and then it goes up the line and down the line. Lineal ascendants, so that's parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, all the way up. And then lineal descendants, which are kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, all the way down, and their spouses. And then here's the kicker. Any companies those same people own, control, manage, or are highly compensated by. So it's a specific list of family, and the reason why they disqualify those people is that's how wealth is passed. When you die, the assets usually go to your spouse or your kids. So all of them are fiduciaries, equal fiduciaries as you, the IRA owner. Now, going back to what you said though, there's a difference between partnering your IRAs together and maybe even your personal money together and doing something that would be prohibited. Now, partnering is different because think about it this way. If you have an imaginary fence here, okay, and you have your IRA over here and you're on the other side, you can't cross the fence, meaning I can't sell things from my IRA to myself, right? I think I can strike up a pretty fancy deal dealing with myself, right? I can strike up some pretty fancy terms, right?
Yeah.
But I make the decisions for both parties. So that's a conflict of interest. I can't self-deal. I can't buy things from my IRA. I can't sell things to my IRA. I can't trade assets with myself and my IRA, okay? So that would be something that would be prohibited. However, if I take, say, my IRA and I put it on the same side as me, okay? Now we're on this side of the fence. And let's say we're buying an investment from Haley, okay? Or we're loaning money to Haley. Now, Haley's not disqualified to me, okay? And I have me and my IRA on the same side of the fence. Now, it's important to make this determination, though. When you partner your IRA, even if you partner with personal money, you have to keep the buckets separate. And whatever percent they put into the deal, you have to stick to that percentage all the way throughout the investment. It has to be a parallel transaction. So let's just say, for example, Haley needs 100 grand for her flip, and I'm going to be her lender. I have $70,000 in my IRA, and I want to put $30,000 of my personal money in that deal. Both of us would be listed on the promissory note, and it would show our undivided interest. Okay, lender one would be Quest IRA Inc. for the benefit of my IRA, as to the undivided interest of 70%, and then the second lender would be Nate Hare, as to the undivided interest of 30%. It's just a fractionalized note. There's no multiple liens. It's still one lien. It's just a fractionalized note, and then I can loan that $100,000 to Haley. Now, if she's paying me, and say she makes a $1,000 interest payment, $700 of that has to go to my IRA. $300 of it goes to me personally. I just have to keep that parallel transaction all the way through. Now, I think there was another part of the question where he said about investing into LLCs. You can actually. That's one of that's our second most processed investment at Quest, is investing into private entities. Now, most of the private entities that Quest clients are investing in are, say, LLCs, you know, and a lot of these LLCs are ended up buying apartment buildings or commercial property. So you'll get someone who's raising private money to buy a large project, and they get, you know, 25% of their funding from IRA investors. So those IRA investors can either invest in shares of that LLC or whatnot. We have a lot of clients that will invest their personal funds and their IRA funds into someone's LLC who might be buying an apartment building. Now, it's important to understand you can't invest in your own LLC because that would be self-dealing on two sides of the fence. But you can invest your IRAs into other people's LLCs, and buy shares and do that type of thing, and that's actually a very, very common investment. So just understand the difference between partnering and doing something that would be prohibited via self-dealing.
Yeah, and partnering is something that we see all the time at Quest. I'm on my third transaction with my Roth IRA. I've partnered my Roth IRA with my mom's Roth IRA for 2 fix and flips that we have flipped and sold, made a nice little profit on, or our IRAs made a nice little profit on, and we're in the middle of our third one right now. So I think someone wanted us to define a little bit better when we say a parallel transaction, what does that mean? So basically, like for example, my deal that I did, the first one, my Roth IRA had a very small amount in there, so my Roth IRA only owned 8% of that investment. My mom's Roth IRA owned the other 92% of that investment. So my IRA owned 8%, hers owned 92%. When we say parallel transaction, basically what that means is each IRA has to pay its percentage of the purchase price, its percentage of any expenses, holding costs, repairs. So my IRA paid 8% of the repairs, 8% of those holding costs. But then when the property is sold and those profits come back in, my IRA has to get 8%. My IRA can't get 50%. That would not be a parallel transaction. That would then become prohibited by the IRS. So my IRA earns 8%, hers are 92%. And partnering is really, really awesome. We see it all the time. Most people do not have enough money in an IRA or in an old 401k to outright purchase the property, flip it, hold it maybe for a month or two, and then get those profits back in. So I mean, if you only have $10,000 in an IRA, but you want your IRA to grow and you want to partner it in to fix up a property, your IRA can own a very small percent of that investment. But remember, when my IRA earned 8% of those returns, my IRA came out, I think, $3,000 to $4,000 ahead of where it started in that deal. So the next deal that we partnered my IRA on, it owned 11% of that investment. It owned just a little bit more. And just from partnering it in those 2 investments, when you round up a little bit, my IRA almost doubled in size in a year just from owning not even 15% of 2 fix and flips.
And you're how old?
25.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
And we're doing the third one now.
One thing that I'll add to that too is when you talk about parallel transactions, the activities have to be the same too. So for instance, one thing you wouldn't be able to do is say you bought a house, okay, personally, okay, 100% you own it personally, okay, as an investment. Your IRA would not be able to come in and do the rehab, okay? That's not a parallel transaction. If you want to do a parallel transaction, it has to start at the very beginning, okay? And you can partner you and your IRA to buy a property that you're going to fix and flip. But remember, if it's, say, 70-30 when you buy it, 70-30 also has to be the same percentages as you pay contractors to rehab it. So it's not only the percentages, but it's the activities as well. You can't have one side do something and the other side do something else. Or for instance, you can't partner your IRA and yourself to buy a house, but then you pay all the expenses. That wouldn't be a parallel transaction. All the activities have to be the same.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it always goes back to, like, yes, there are some black and white rules for what's prohibited and who's disqualified, but at the end of the day, if you ever were to get audited by the IRS and they kind of unpeel things and they deem that there is any sort of direct or indirect benefit to you personally from an investment that you've done with your IRA, it would be deemed as a prohibited transaction where, you know, you're dealing with your IRA money. You get this awesome tax advantage. I always tell people, you know, play it safe. If you want to do something maybe a little more janky, do it with your own money. Don't involve your IRA, because if you get caught in a prohibited transaction, your IRA ceases to be an IRA. It's taxed, distributed, penalized, and it backdates to when that investment happened. So if you get caught...
Let's keep it on a positive note for the first show.
Yeah.
So what I will tell you is, you don't have to be an expert to these rules either. If you have a question, just call Quest, okay? We're very good at walking people through, you know, the do's and the don'ts when it comes to your IRA's investments. And the rules are really easy to follow. Typically, the people that get hammered are the people that purposely try to bend the rules and then they get caught. Well, if you get caught, the IRS is not, they don't just slap you on the wrist when it comes to your retirement account. They just say, oh, well, you follow our rules, so here's your retirement account back, pay us all the tax and penalties on it.
Yeah.
So as long as you educate yourself and you're not trying to, you know, skirt by the rules, you'll be perfectly fine. And I'll actually, if I have time, I'll talk about an investment that I'm looking to do, which kind of talks about partnering and using smaller amounts of money. You don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in a retirement account to buy real estate, you know, or do private money lending. So I'll give you an example of one investment that I'm currently working on is that I'm going to buy a rental property, okay? And I'm going to buy a rental property in Houston because it's right there. I know where it's at. I can always, you know, drive out there if there's any issues. But the rental property is going to be owned by several different IRAs that I have set up. Okay, one is my Roth IRA. I also have a health savings account. Okay, now health savings accounts are great. They can be self-directed, but the benefit is the profit can be used immediately to pay for out-of-pocket health expenses tax-free. So if I need to buy glasses, if I need to go to the dentist, if I need prescriptions, all that stuff can be paid out of the profit of a health savings account with tax-free money versus the money in my back pocket, which is taxable. So as part of this investment, I'm going to use as a down payment my Roth IRA, my HSA, and I don't have kids yet, but I have 2 nieces, okay, adorable nieces in Seattle.
They are adorable.
And they'll love me. I'll be their favorite uncle once this investment's done. But I have 2 ESAs, education savings accounts, set up for each of them. Okay, now I can put in $2,000 per child per year, so I max those those out. But the beauty of it is that education savings account is the only one that can be self-directed. So I'm going to partner those 4 accounts, Roth IRA, HSA, and 2 ESAs, and they're going to put a down payment down on a house. Now I say down payment because I'm going to leverage the rest of the money from a bank. There are banks that have IRA loans. It's not Wells Fargo or Chase. They'll look at you like you're crazy if you try to ask for one of those types of loans.
Yeah.
But if you go out there, there's a lot of IRA lenders out there. North American Savings Bank is probably the largest IRA lender, NASB.com. A lot of our clients use them and like them. There's another company, First Western Federal. Their website's myiralender.com. And there's a whole host of other ones. A lot of hard money lenders do IRA loans as well. But basically what I'm doing is I'm taking several small accounts, my Roth, my HSA, and 2 ESAs. They're all going to partner together. They're going to have their own specific percentage of interest based on the down payment that I'm making. And then I'm going to borrow the rest of the money from a bank. And the plan is I'm just going to keep that house rented. And the renters are ultimately going to pay the note off. And then say 20 years down the road, well, the house is going to be owned free and clear, but it's going to be owned partnered with my Roth, my HSA, and my 2 nieces' Coverdales. So by that time, 20 years, or maybe a little bit sooner if I do some principal pay downs, by the time they're ready for college, I'll be able to sell their interest on that property and hand my brother a big stack of cash and say, here, this will help them in college or whatever vocational school they want to go to. So that's just me applying my knowledge of the IRAs, my knowledge of real estate, and the ability to understand how I can leverage different sources of money and not come in with all the cash myself.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you actually made just now and in Phoenix yesterday, where if your child goes to college and their tuition ends up being, say, like $30,000 for a year if they go to SMU or 4 years if they go to A&M, it doesn't really matter. But say their whole college is going to cost $30,000 to $50,000. If you pay that with your money, you as an individual, you're a taxpayer. So if their college costs $30,000, you have to make that much more than that. You actually have to make and save $50,000 to $60,000 to actually pay for their college expenses. Whereas the Coverdell Education Savings Account, any investments you do inside of that Coverdell, which the Coverdell and the health savings account can be self-directed just like all of the other accounts that we hold at Quest.
And here's the reality of it, is that investment, who's paying for my niece's college?
The tenants.
The renters.
Yeah.
The renters I'm putting in the house. So my case study, once I get this done, is it's going to be how my renters paid for my retirement, my health expenses, and put my 2 nieces through college.
Yeah.
So, because that's the reality of it. I'm not shoveling a bunch of extra money in there. I'm just putting 2 years of contributions in there.
Yeah.
It's not my brother's money that he's got his own money and he does his own thing, but this will literally be education savings accounts that will be funded by the rents from the renters and hopefully, most likely, the appreciation of the property over the next 20 years. That's how I'm building the account, not shoveling my own money into it.
Yeah, and that's another big thing that we always talk about at Quest. It's not about how much can I shovel into an IRA, it's how can I take this little amount that I put into these accounts and do something creative with it to make it grow, have those tenants pay for both of your nieces' college, your health expenses.
Yeah, how do you work less?
Yeah.
How do you do less of a grind and spin your wheels trying to earn more money to pay more taxes to shovel that money in there? Work less. Figure out a way to leverage these self-directed IRAs and let the investment grow the account, not you shoveling money into it off of your earnings, which are taxed.
Yes, which also kind of brings us to a good question, kind of building off of that case study. Jamal has another question. Could I use IRA rental income or profit for repairs and other expenses? So the long story short is yes, you have to. So those expenses and repairs have to be paid from the IRA. And essentially there's no other bank account that you have to set up or anything. When those rental payments come in, your renters will send their checks directly back to the IRA. They can go online to our website, do an ACH directly online through questira.com, and then that money just goes directly back into your IRA account. Then when you have expenses and repairs that do come along, those will just be paid from the IRA.
Yeah, and we have great systems that allow you to do that. So Quest is one of the companies that I think is trying to use technology in our favor. I will say the self-directed IRA industry as a whole is, I would say, in its infancy when it comes to technology. We're trying to make a change. We're trying to be the company that kind of paves the way with a new technology. So we've already got it to the ability to where any of your renters can pay directly to your IRA through an online ACH portal. If you have borrowers, they can pay interest payments right through the portal. You get a notification right when they make a payment. It's drafted right from their account, makes it very easy. And then once the money is in your account, like Haley said, if you need to pay expenses, we have a feature in your client portal that just allows you to pay expenses just like a bill pay feature. I need to pay, this utilities bill. You just upload an invoice and we pay it. So, and then back to that is you just want to make sure that you understand who can't pay those expenses. If you ever run illiquid in the account and you have to pay expenses, that could be a little bit of a tricky thing. You want to talk to an IRA specialist, make sure you don't do something wrong. But as a general rule of thumb, if your IRA owns an investment, a disqualified person is not allowed to pay the expenses. So you can't pay the expenses, your spouse, up the line, down the line. But anybody else outside of that can pay it. So that is something that you want to identify is if you get into a sticky situation where maybe you have some property taxes that need to get paid or something like that, and you don't have cash in the IRA, talk to an IRA specialist. They'll kind of walk you through different options of how to get that paid. They'll ask you things like, have you made your contribution yet this year? Maybe you could just put some money in there as a contribution and we can use that contribution to make the expense payments. Or do you have another IRA or a rollover, an old 401k that you can roll into the IRA? Can we get it funded that way? If you don't have any of that ability, then we talk about, okay, well, you might have to get, you might have to have a money partner come in and save the day. It happens from time to time, but I think if you plan it out right, you should be safe. If you're getting rents, the rent should cover, whatever other expenses you might have.
Awesome. So we've got a few more questions. Joseph wants to know, he came into this live stream a little bit late. That's okay, you can rewatch the beginning later. But how do you invest your IRA or 401k? Is there a website? Yes. So questira.com, we'll link it in the comments. Also, our Facebook page has a ton of webinars, all of our events we post on Facebook. So we've got a lot of online resources for you, but also give us a call. Go online to the website, click on Contact Us. You can request an appointment with an IRA specialist. That appointment, that consultation is always 100% free. It does not cost you anything to talk to an IRA specialist. You don't have to be a client. We're here to help educate you and walk you guys through everything because we always say our best clients are our most educated clients. If we don't do our role in helping to walk you through the process and educate you, our clients aren't going to know how to do it. They're not going to be able to do deals. So call us. It's always free. Go online. We've got a ton of information for you.
You'll find if you go on our website and go to our education center, there is a ton of education that we have pre-recorded. We also do a lot of live stuff ourselves. So I would think pretty much every day of the week, if you follow our Facebook page, you'll get a notification that we're going live with some sort of education. And like Haley said, part of our job as a self-directed IRA custodian, because we don't sell investments and because we can't tell people what they should invest in, we do feel like we need to educate the clients. Because for us as a company, how does Quest make money? We don't make money by people just opening accounts and not doing anything with it. That actually costs us money. We only make money when clients are doing investments and clients are making money. So it's kind of a team. It's kind of a team game. Okay, clients make money, we make money. Now, how do clients make money? When they're knowledgeable about their investments and they're not stubbing their toe. So like Haley said, educated clients are better clients for us. So we try to do as much as we can to educate our clients. And we do a lot of fantastic big events too. We just did our first Dallas Expo, which Haley was a big part of. The first IRA Expo in the state of Texas. We had 500 people there. It was phenomenal. Ryan was there. Everybody who's anybody was at the Expo.
Yeah.
And the people that left that Expo, you can ask anybody, everybody said it was one of the best events they had ever been to. The content was phenomenal. The staff was phenomenal. And it was our first time doing an Expo. It was great. And we already have one slated for this coming August, which we're going to do in Houston, and we anticipate close to 1,000 people at that event. And we'll have 2 days of speakers. It'll be great education. It is one of the rare events that we do charge for, just because it's such a grandiose thing, and we gotta, you know, we pay a lot to set these events up. But that's not how we make our money. We don't try to make money on events. Our events are geared to give you guys a platform to learn from other investors through other strategies, and then learn how you can really leverage your self-directed IRAs and do what's best for your retirement.
Yep. Awesome, guys. So we are getting a little bit close to the end, so be sure to get in those last minute questions if you still have them. I have a question from Matt Smith, and this question has quite a few parts to it. So Nate, probably going to have your help answering this one.
Okay.
So say you have two notes. Say your IRA and your mom's IRA. You took 70 grand from my IRA and 30 grand of my mom's IRA. The flip failed and it auctioned for 70 grand. Would your mom's 30 grand technically get back 0 and you get back 70? So there's a lot of parts to this question. I'm going to kind of simplify it to give a kind of a preliminary answer. So just say me and my mom partnered our IRAs, we either loan money or we buy a property, and that investment turns into a bad investment. Say we take that 100 grand, we buy a property and we misvalued it, it burns down, something happens, and we sell it and it only sells for say 50 grand. That 50 grand would still have to go back based on those percentages of ownership, whether you have a gain from an investment or a profit or a loss from an investment. Whatever profit does end up coming back in at the end of the day, or whatever payback comes in, still has to go back based on those percentages of ownership. Now for this one, it sounds like he's asking.
Plus the other thing though too is you don't want to stiff your mom, because Thanksgiving is next month. How awkward do you want Thanksgiving to be if you keep your you keep your portion and then you stiff mom? But back to what you said, if the investment takes a loss, the investment takes a loss, but the ownership percentages don't change. So if it takes a loss, then both parties take a loss equal to whatever the percent ownership they have.
And then to kind of build on that, so the way the question was worded, say you have two notes, my IRA and my mom's IRA. That could be leaning towards something that's more of a gray area, towards a prohibited transaction actually, but it depends on how the investment would be set up. Because say my mom loans money on a property and that borrower gets into trouble and he's not able to pay her back. So I come in and then I loan him the money from my IRA. Nate, would you agree that that's leaning a little bit more towards the prohibited side?
I would say it's prohibited. It's prohibited because remember, it has to be a parallel transaction. That's not a parallel transaction because that's one party doing one thing and then another party doing another. Now it would be fine if those parties were not disqualified to one another. But the fact that it's you and your mom, you guys are disqualified to one another, so it wouldn't be able to be, you know, say you have a note to a certain individual and say the investment goes bad, or for whatever reason, that same borrower for that same investment needs more money, your mom's IRA or anybody that's disqualified to you wouldn't be able to come in because now it's not parallel. Okay, it has to start at the beginning. Now, switch gears for a second. Let's say you do get in that situation. There's nothing preventing that borrower or even you. I've seen this happen. Is say you got a note on a property and the investment might be going south, and you need some extra funding to maybe save the deal. Maybe the rehab went above what it needed to be, and the guy needs more money. The guy or gal needs more money. Well, then another person can come in with their IRA who's not disqualified to you. And there's a lot of people out there. Where would you find some of those people? A Quest class, a Quest event. There's a lot of Quest clients that have saved other Quest clients' investments by doing that. And obviously, you might have to give up a little bit of the deal. But there's clients out there that you would do. So in that situation, if you've started it with one party, you can't come in with disqualified people to help save that. You just got to find other people's IRAs or other people's to be a money partner.
Yeah, and it always comes down to do your due diligence. You know, kind of have a backup A, B, and C plan. Build your network so you do have those reliable people that you can call and say, hey man, I'm maybe in a little bit of trouble and need some more money for this deal, or have a trusted network of people. Because if you call us and you try to ask us, hey, what do I do? I'm running out of money. I can't give you investment advice. I also cannot tell you how to structure your deal whatsoever. But to kind of end on a positive note, we will be doing these shows every Friday, the Quest Talks on Propelio TV, every other Friday actually, and we've got a really awesome lineup planned. So the next show we'll have you here with Rebecca Miller. She's one of our other IRA specialists. She's also our solo 401k specialist.
And she's a 401k and employer plan expert. So if you are interested in learning more about the employer plans and specifically the solo 401k that we have at Quest, bring those questions to that show. Rebecca's amazing at that.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll be here every other Friday. Today was a great show. If you guys have more questions, if you're watching later, comment below. Ryan makes sure to tag me in every comment that we get a question about Quest IRA, so I will definitely see them and answer all of those for you. Give us a call. We do also, shameless plug, have an awesome account opening special right now. I think you and Rebecca are going to touch a little bit more on health and education savings accounts next week because next show, because you're also talking about how to really maximize all of these accounts. But we're actually waiving all account opening fees on health and education savings accounts through December 1st. If you want to take advantage of that, give us a call, visit our website, visit our Facebook page. There's a lot of ways to reach us. Myself and our team of about 15 IRA specialists, we're always more than happy to walk you through the process and answer all of your questions for you. So
Great.
Yeah.
Great questions, guys. We had a lot of fun. So tune in next time.
Yep.
with Quest
We'll
Talks.
be back. Awesome. Thanks, guys.